fine to call me Chris anytime by anyone. I'm 31 years old. I initially studied mathematics, so did a bachelor's and a master's degree, and then started my careers trying to fix problems of managers and big corporations. So I built slides. Yeah, I went into management consulting, which was a very cool journey. At least I learned a lot. That was for sure a really good toolkit in life. Well, also the point of time where I basically bootstrapped my first business, which was a side hustle. I was very, very curious, passionate about everything that happened in the science of aging. And I then decided to build up a brand about products which relate to these facts, science of aging, stop aging, and so on. Now, people call it longevity in the startup world, but it was quite a while ago. And at the end of the day, we built up a brand, e-commerce brand. And
sorry, so you saying that you work for Avon?
No, not really. I would say I was a bit before the curve. Yeah, actually, we were a bit before the curve, before it was such a hot topic and VC started jumping on it. It was mostly a passion project for myself, but at the end of the day, we built a business from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. And what we did was we automated everything, the whole supply chain. It was a really cool journey. We were able to sell this company. It was cool. Yeah, it was really, really nice.
So why did you pick blown-in insulation as your product?
Yeah, why blown insulation starts first with why insulation and then why blown insulation. So why insulation, I think, is the first question. So if you look at retrofits and what you can do for a building, there's, generally speaking, 3 big dimensions of what you can do. You can basically try to get your own energy, which is solar. You can change your heating system, which is, generally speaking, installing heat pumps, if you take it honestly. And then lastly, there's insulation. And now what I found very, very interesting is what is actually the best thing a customer can do? What is the best return on invest? And what most people think is that what should they do for their house? Yeah, I should get a solar system. I should get a heat pump. They are really important for me. Yeah. Return on investment wise, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Return on investment wise, insulation is much, much, much more energy efficient and has a way better return on invest than a solar system and a heat pump. And this is what I love about insulation. Yeah. I think, generally speaking, insulation makes way more sense than just installing a solar system or just installing a heat pump.
Okay, so on the margin side, is it similar to like a more traditional business that does blown-in insulation, or are you better?
No, I would say like a classical business. Yeah, I think, generally speaking, I think in every craftsman business, people always ask, what is your unique value proposition? What do you do differently? And quite honestly, I think for most insulation business, construction businesses, there's no unique selling point. I think.
Thanks for saying that, because that's true.
Because it's true. Yeah, you look at the solar industry. Yeah, a very good example. There's thousands of solar companies, and what do? They all buy the same modules somewhere in China, and they get people on board to make the installations. And then they try to create a good customer experience. So what is your unique selling point?
So what were some of the culture shocks or perhaps misconceptions that surprised you when you were suddenly now found yourself working in a business that was heavily backed by investors? Be honest.
Actually, right? No, I'm 100% honest. Yeah, you don't have to be worried about me being honest. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's actually what the story I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you raise seed, people always said to us, yeah, be more ambitious, or especially to me, yeah, be more ambitious, and create a bigger story. And I think, intrinsically, how I tend to be as a person, I'm being very, very honest. I would also say I'm somehow analytical. So I have a plan and I know I can outperform the plan and I'm good to go. Yeah. But how the VC world turns to be is that they want more than like just general ambition. They want a bit, I would say, craziness. And I think that is something I didn't expect it to be such a factor. I think investors are more rational people, but and I don't want to take away it from anyone. But what I just noticed, what works really, really good in fundraising, if you manage to create FOMO, if people are really having the fear of missing out on an investment, and it's like in dating, it's like in everything, yeah. But for whatever reason, I just didn't think it's the same in VC. I think they're more rational decision makers, but VCs and markets and investments are very, very often done based on FOMO. Yeah, and that is something I didn't expect when I started my journey.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. This episode is brought to you by Build Vision, transforming construction supply chain by bringing contractors, manufacturers, and stakeholders onto a single software platform. Visit buildvision.io to find out more. Alrighty. So, Chris, could you tell us, I will dive straight in here, the journey to VARM?
Well, that's a big question to start
Where to start?
Where to start? Maybe first, hello. Thanks for having me. That's awesome. I know that you've once done a podcast with Patrick, and I thought it was hilarious. So,
what was your favorite anecdote from this podcast?
Oh, the favorite anecdote was, I can't put it directly in words, but it was a bit like, so you guys are doing insulation, and then we talked about heat pumps, and you were like, okay, so getting a heat pump before getting insulation is like having a broken arm and going to the hospital and then getting a nose correction because your nose doesn't look so great instead of fixing your arm. And I thought that was hilarious.
I had to remind you of that because that was the outer.
No, okay. How does it get to VARM? Where do I actually start? Maybe just let me introduce myself. Yeah.
Sure.
So
yeah, go for it.
Fine to call me Chris anytime by anyone. I'm 31 years old. I initially studied mathematics, so did a bachelor's and a master's degree, and then started my careers trying to fix problems of managers in big corporations. So I built slides. Yeah, I went into management consulting, which was a very cool journey. At least I learned a lot. That was for sure a really good toolkit in life. Well, also the point of time where I basically bootstrapped my first business, which was a side hustle. I was very, very curious, passionate about everything that happened in the science of aging. And I then decided to build up a brand about products which relate to these facts, science of aging, stop aging, and so on. Now, people call it longevity in the startup world, but it was quite a while ago. And at the end of the day, we built up a brand, e-commerce brand. And
Sorry, so you saying that you work for Avon?
No, not really. I would say I was a bit before the curve. Yeah, actually. We were a bit before the curve, before it was such a hot topic and VC started jumping on it. It was mostly a passion project for myself, but at the end of the day, we built a business from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. And what we did was we automated everything, the whole supply chain. It was a really cool journey. We were able to sell this company. It was cool. Yeah, it was really, really nice. And then I looked back and was like, okay, this is way more fun than building slides. Let me quit management consulting. And
so that was on the side, or that was full time that you?
No, this was on the side. This was on the side. Yeah, honestly speaking, Martin, now, and I'm like not bullshitting. This was not a life-changing exit. Yeah, it was not like that. I was like, okay, I can stop working now. But it was building a company up, bootstrapped, and then doing everything, having touch on starting from product to design to supply chain to tech to automation and so on. So I really enjoyed that.
Not decided to like keep growing.
That is a very fair question. In hindsight, it would have been likely better to just keep doing it. Now looking back at it. But back then...
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
It was still costing a lot of time. It was not at a point of time where I said I should do this, I want to do this 100% with my time. I wanted to stay somehow in management consulting, somehow quit, do something else.
Mhm.
And then this opportunity came around where we could just basically sell the company, sell the brand, basically. And that was a really cool, unforeseen opportunity for us. And then we took it.
Good
And
reward.
yeah, it was a good reward. And now, or then I basically quit management consulting. I went out. I thought about what do I actually want to do with my time. And I really sat down and was like, okay, what should I do? And what the outcome was of that is actually that I said, if I want to do something new, if I want to build another venture, I want to spend my time doing something useful.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a shitty product. Yeah, do something that the world needs. And that meant for me, to some extent, fighting climate change. It seems cheesy, but I realized that I can do that actually when fixing buildings.
But you're doing it in a very practical and pragmatic and physical way rather than
100%. And I think that was also a realization I had afterwards. I was like, so if I want to work on climate, what do I actually want to do? Yeah, because there are these different paths of what you can build. You can build a B2B software platform for, let's say, ESG reporting. Yeah,
accounting software,
whatever. And I said, okay, this is not really fixing anything. Yeah, this is just it's just showing the problem. And then there's this other, basically, whole industry of trying to figure out direct air capturing, massive deep tech, trying to like invest 10, 15, 20 years into the future with a lot of research. And that was not for me because it didn't have direct impact. I wanted to do something right from the start. And if you have these two realizations and you want to focus on the third, it then massively boils down to the fact that you have to find something that has concrete output. And concrete output in buildings is quite straightforward. Over 1/3 of our emissions are coming from buildings. So fixing buildings, which are CO2 monsters, is quite straightforward. And I sat then down and how to make buildings energy efficient. You can use heat pumps, solar systems, insulation. Looked a very long time at especially heat pumps, and then realized, hey, let's do insulation. It's a blue ocean market. There's no real big insulation company. Sebastian and myself, we sat down and said, hey, so my co-founder and myself, let's just build a really fucking great insulation business, yeah? And go from there. And that's how we raised our first round. So, and never looked back so far.
Chris, bring me back to this moment. So you are one of the few people who actually come from this position that they managed to exit previous business, and you come into thinking about like what can you do next. Were you already thinking at that time that you will be raising capital, or there was to grow a business, or you were thinking maybe to bootstrap it first and then see how it goes and then seek for funding?
I always wanted to build a VC way because, personally speaking, I think impact for me is a motivational driver, and I think generally speaking, the baseline of this is just building a great business. And the positive upside of that is like really helping people become more energy efficient, saving a lot of CO2. But the bottom foundation is building a great business. And if you want to take now this top layer, the impact dimension, somehow seriously, you have to achieve a lot. And if you want to achieve a lot, I believe that you need external funding. So our mission at VARM is to insulate 1 million houses over 10 years. And I don't believe that someone can achieve that with a bootstrap business.
Very good.
How many have you got so far?
Not so many, yeah? Far away. We're somehow at 500. Yeah, so we insulate now 50, 60, 70 houses per month. That's the current scope of where we're at. And I actually get this question. I get this question sometimes. Yeah, is this like really an achievable goal? And I sincerely believe it is. Yeah. So when you boil this down, what does it mean to basically insulate 1 million houses in 10 years? Then obviously, if you look at the curve, in the last year, you will do the most housing insulations, right? That's I think quite obvious. So if you say you do the majority of that, let's just say 250,000 houses in the 10th year, then you need to insulate a lot of houses that year. But it's around 200 year for around 250 days. Yeah. So that makes, if you calculate that divided through each other, it makes 1,000 houses per day. And 1,000 houses per day actually sounds again realistic. Yeah, because for one house we need 1 day on average. Yeah, it's 1.2, but I'm pretty sure we can boil it down to 1 day in the future. And it needs a team of 2 people. So you need around 2,000 employees on the payroll, off the payroll, whatever, working on insulation and driving that forward. And if you look at other companies in the space, for example, NPAL, which is a climate tech unicorn, they have way more installers than that already on their payroll, working especially on solar and heat pumps. But it's achievable, and yeah.
So they're doing facelifting. You're doing the real stuff.
Butt cheeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, why? So can you just tell us why insulation and why not? Like, obviously, you guys are in the game of. Would you classify it as retrofit?
Yeah, I would say so.
And that can encompass a few different technologies, right? So why did you pick blown-in insulation as your product?
Yeah, why blown insulation starts first with why insulation and then why blown insulation. So why insulation, I think, is the first question. So if you look at retrofits and what you can do for a building, there's, generally speaking, 3 big dimensions of what you can do. You can basically try to get your own energy, which is solar. You can change your heating system, which is, generally speaking, installing heat pumps, if you take it honestly. And then lastly, there's insulation. And now what I found very interesting is, what is actually the best thing a customer can do? What is the best return on invest? And what most people think is that, what should they do for their house? Yeah, I should get a solar system. I should get a heat pump. They are really important for me. Yeah. Return on investment wise, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Return on investment wise, insulation is much more energy efficient and has a way better return on invest than a solar system and a heat pump. And this is what I love about insulation. Yeah. I think, generally speaking, insulation makes way more sense than just installing a solar system or just installing a heat pump. Yes, obviously they benefit from each other. If you have a solar system and a heat pump, you get synergies. But no matter what, insulation is just a way better business case. Yeah? So insulation is 3 to 4x more efficient than getting a heat pump, and generally speaking, 10x more efficient than getting a solar system in terms of what kind of costs you have as a customer, and also how fast the return on investment is. So, but your question is, why blow-in insulation? Yeah. So first we committed to insulation instead of heat pumps and solar, and then we said, okay, if you take this honesty, if we want to build a really big insulation business, we need something that somehow scales, as we see saying, right? And what we loved about blow-in insulation and still love till today is it's a super efficient way to make houses energy efficient. You can insulate a house in 1 to 2 days with 2 people, and that's awesome. So critics somehow say, outside perspective, also a lot of customers say, yeah, but this is as efficient as doing classical insulation where you just build a house around the house, right? That's classical facade insulation. And yes, classical facade insulation is more effective, but the reduction you get is a 90% reduction on the facade. With blow-in insulation, you get an 80% reduction of energy loss or heating loss. So the difference from 90% to 80% is very small, we obviously know. And it just costs way less. So a blow-in insulation project costs around 5,000 euros. A classical facade insulation costs around 40,000 euros for a general single-family home. So we love blow-in insulation. Is it a more niche market than classical facade insulation? Yes. This was our starting point where we said, hey, this is the product we can learn, we can test, we can generate traction with. And this was also basis for our seed round. Right now, we're doing more and more other kinds of insulation projects. We look at, for example, big cellar insulations for multifamily homes, doing roofs, doing attics, and so on. Yeah, this is all part of the product portfolio now. Last sentence to that, yeah. We want to build a European champion for insulation. That was also the fundraising story we had from the start. We want to build the industry leader for insulation in Europe, and that is not the blow-in insulation company for Germany. It's the European insulation champion. Yeah, so very good. It's more diverse.
Here we go.
So I'm stopping for a second on the wall insulation. What's like typical cavity construction in Germany? And how much insulation do you blow in? And then the question will be also, do you test it afterwards? How good is insulated somehow? Or? Tell us.
Yes, Martin, a lot of questions. Let me try to answer them all at the same time. If I forget something, remind me.
Sure.
So, what type of houses do you need for blowing insulation? So first, important fact, you cannot just only do facade insulation. You can also do roof insulations or attic insulations, also cellar insulations with blow-in insulation. Yeah, so there's in various cases inside a house or in a building envelope, you have holes and you can fill this holes unbelievably efficient with insulation, with blow-in insulation. The most used product though is still facade insulation. And what we call these walls and build-ups, we call them cavity walls. These are at the end of the day air gaps in walls. Yeah, so it's a bit back in the days, like 40, 50, 60 years ago, people thought it's a good idea to build holes in walls because they wanted to have dry inside walls, which makes sense. But for an insulation purposes, it's actually a really stupid idea. And back then, insulation was not such a big topic. So they built a lot of houses in Europe with these cavity walls uninsulated. And now that energy prices have been keeping rising over centuries, energy is unbelievably expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue is that you lose a lot of energy when you have a cavity wall inside your wall. So you try to fix it with insulation. So this is quite straightforward.
Mm.
Let's say, for example, for the German market, we have around 16 million houses. Around 3.5 to 4 have a cavity wall and are uninsulated. So there's enough space to build alone a very, very big insulation business.
It's only 3 years of work.
Sorry?
It's only 3 years of work.
Yeah, true. I think insulating 1 million houses in Germany alone is quite a stretch. But then, there's not just blow-in insulations. We do attic insulations, we do roof insulations, cellar insulations, and so on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, forgive me, blunt question, but where is technology here?
Generally speaking, and I think that is really important to understand, we're not a classical B2B software business. We are a real work, how I like to call it, business. And that's had massive benefits. Nice
Physical
cash
world.
flows, physical world. It's labor intensive, yes, but it has great cash flows, good unit economics. And the general idea which we always had was, and Martin, fair point, was we want to build a European champion on insulation, yes. And then the second sentence was always on something on decentralized system, what we call the cloud installer network. That's a very fancy term for, I would say, a franchise on steroids. What we mean by that is, or what we basically do and what our business model was from the start is that we said, hey, we want to understand insulation and then bring craftsmen on our payroll, people with a blue collar background. This is what we do. Then step 2, we train them from different backgrounds, carpenters, whatever they are, painters. We give them the opportunity to run through a training program. And after that training program, they can insulate houses with us. So they become insulators, insulation installers. And then they do a lot of projects together with us for 6-7 months. Every day or every second day, there's a new project. So they get a lot of experience. And they do this already with the technology we give them. So all our projects are already done remotely. And this is where the tech angle comes in. So all these teams are working remotely towards us being in the headquarters, doing everything that is non-physical. We do obviously try to make it super efficient and with software. And the physical labor part, which is the insulation itself, is done by these remote teams. And in the next phase of VARM, and what we're doing right now, which is super exciting, is we make them own independent business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So we give them a business-in-a-box solution to open up their own insulation shop with us. It's a bit like when you want to book a taxi ride, Martin, you want to go to Owen and you book a taxi ride, you get out your Uber app, right? You book a Uber ride, which is a taxi ride at the end of the day. Someone picks you up, drives you there, lifts you off, you go out. There's an invoice, you pay something to Uber, Uber gets it to the driver, everything's seamless for you. It's super, super nice experience. But the person doing the drive, and we all know, is not working for Uber. It's a person working on a platform. And actually speaking, it's a company that runs a taxi business on the Uber platform. And this is super, super similar to what we want to do, or what we're actually doing already. We have a seamless experience for customers wanting an insulation project. And in the middle of this customer journey, which goes from creating a lead, which is sales, which is marketing, then to creating an offer, which is sales, to doing and closing it, to procurement, which is basically getting the material and doing the scheduling, towards the physical part, the labor-intensive part, the insulation of the house, which is done by ops currently, towards an after-sales process. And what we do is we give our installers this opportunity to open up their own business in the operations part, where we run their business and do everything else for them while they become own independent business owners. So it's a bit like they coming on Uber doing taxi rides, or they come to VARM to do an installation business.
That's super cool. I know that one of the blockers, perhaps, Chris, to the retrofit challenge within Europe is the labor available in order to undertake the work. So, was the business in a box idea born out of that challenge specifically? And also, like, what's the kind of skill level of a typical person, a typical blow-in insulation installer?
Yeah. First, where does this business in a box solution come from? So I basically built a business from scratch, and I would say I have a strong background for doing this. But I also realized running a business, a small business, is fucking hard. Yeah, it's not easy to do. It's actually very, very challenging. And now think about a craftsman, who has spent his life working on a construction site. Or maybe he's super, super ambitious. He's a hustler, but he has never, ever done something with taxes. He's never written an offer. He has no ideas how to get good material prices. Yeah, he has never done subsidies. There's so many things to running a business, and it's really, really hard. And what we basically said is we like this idea of having a franchise, but the franchise, also being a franchisee, is super, super hard, because you get put in this opportunity to run an installation business, and suddenly you have to do everything else around running the business as well. Creating leads, doing marketing, doing sales, closing customers, doing procurement, doing hiring, and so on. And we want to take all of that away and give these people the opportunity to still be an insulator, but inside an own business, where we really, really help them running that business shop. And that is the business in the box solution. So the idea is someone who's with VARM and who has been an installer for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, for them, nothing basically changes. Yeah, they can do their general job continuously while we run their business for them. And I think this is what makes it interesting and exciting. And also we then lowered basically the hurdle. Yeah, that's part of the business in the box solution. And that's towards that, and I hope that answered your question. And second part is, you can have a follow-up question to that if you want.
No, I was going to remind you what the second question was about the skill level.
The skill level.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, the skill level is quite diverse. Yeah, so we have from master carpenters to people who have no formal education and just a bit of craftsman background, towards people who have been in jail. Everyone. We take the people who have a great attitude. Skill obviously helps. Yeah, if you have a proper apprenticeship or done something similar in life, it obviously helps. But at the end of the day, we want people to come in and say, hey, I think it's cool what you do. I like that I can work at a young craftsman business, because this is what it is for them. But have a career opportunity where I can develop and I can have major impact on my career. For you guys, right? For me, coming into a job, we're super entitled. We do these studies, and then we go from university to our first job, and we're like,
I know everything.
I know everything, first off. And second, I think I should get a promotion in 2 years. And then go to your manager and say then you say like, okay, can you please show me the path of how I get my promotion in 1 year? And you get this career path, you know where to go, you know what to do, and it's quite straightforward. When you are working in a blue-collar job, that is not existing, right? You go to a construction company, and then you are labor for the construction company. And generally speaking, the only way that a new positioning is most of the time opening up is when someone is leaving, because of age or because of sickness or because they find another job, and then you can make a step up. But it's like there's no clear path of how to progress. And what we try to do is we try to give these people coming in an opportunity to grow. First off, inside VARM, from being like just a supporting hand, towards a more experienced hand, towards running your own crew, towards becoming a potential off payroll installer, with running your own business. And that's a career path that is exciting to most people, because they suddenly have this opportunity to grow and to evaluate and also get salary increases and so on and so on. And that's nice. And that's, I think, what's cool about it and what makes them excited.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Chris, I wanted to ask, how are you thinking about the growth? So I guess you recently got founded. You are...
You guys are Series A now, huh?
No.
Seed, okay.
Yeah, Series C. No, we are a seed stage startup, seed stage. But I heard that a lot. Yeah, we did a quite substantial seed round with 5.7 million. And it was, for us, a massive step up from a 1 million pre-seed round to a 5.7 million seed round. That's nearly 6x. Yeah, so a lot of people said you're Series A. No, we seed.
Okay.
We seed.
We
seed.
But because it's, I guess, part of it, it's tangible kind of operations which require people to go to real sites and do something real. Probably that's the reason for this amount of...
It's more capital
funding.
intensive, perhaps.
So I think, yes, we have labor and we also need a bit of investments to equip a new team, but it's no major investments. So one new team has the potential to create around 50,000 euros of revenue per month. And it needs a 40,000 euros investment. And obviously these 50,000 euros we make per month with them they have quite a good contribution margin.
I was going to ask,
they pay for themselves. Yeah, they pay for themselves.
They pay for themselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you share what sort of range are we talking, or not at all?
The interesting part is, I think it's, so yes, I can share, but I think it needs context. That there's no given number towards that, because when you have a new team, I give you an example why it's super hard to give a general number. When you have a new team that is basically right coming from school, right from academy, just getting on board, they will never be as efficient as someone who has been there for 6-7 months or even 1.5 years, right? The revenue potential of a person who has way more experience is way higher than someone who is coming right off the board, right off academy. So it takes a while until they become super efficient, because then they also make less errors. Errors is obviously killing your margin. And that's generally part of it. How we think about the business is that we said we want to build a really big installation business. And for this, we need a lot of people, doing a way bigger, or how do you say that? Trying to create a way bigger wheel. That's something that makes sense. Pushing a wheel forward than a normal craftsman business. And for this, we need people in our office. And for this, we need VC funding. The people on the blue collar side, though, they generate enough revenue to carry themselves. Yeah. So they are not basically part of our general P&L. Yes, we obviously look at that, but generally speaking, this is the part that basically pays for himself. And then we have people in the office trying to create new marketing campaigns, evaluating growth, doing go-to-market, doing expansion, and so on. And these are the people who make the business really big. And for this is the VC money, to basically transform an industry. And for this, we need that. On the other side, the blue collar side, that is what basically brings us growth, brings us revenue, but contribution-wise, they just pay for themselves. Yeah.
Okay. So on the margin side, is it similar to like a more traditional business that does blown-in insulation, or are you better?
No, I would say like a classical business. Yeah, I think, generally speaking, I think in every craftsman business, people always ask, what is your unique value proposition? What do you do differently? And quite honestly, I think for most insulation construction businesses, there's no unique selling point. I think.
Thanks for saying that, because that's true.
Because it's true. Yeah, you look at the solar industry. Yeah, a very good example. There's thousands of solar companies, and what do? They all buy the same modules somewhere in China. They get people on board to make the installations, and then they try to create a good customer experience. So what is your unique selling point? Yeah, maybe you can create a really fancy 3D model of the house, and then try to sell it. Try to sell it to the customer, but maybe is this really the value add?
Yes.
I don't believe so. I think the value add is trying to get the extra mile towards customers. And on the construction sides, especially when something goes wrong, that you are really, really approachable, that you try to sort it out. And I think we do an unbelievably good job in first trying to always have an A+ installation experience. And if there are complications, try to sort them out together with the team and together with the people in the office. And if you look at our reviews, we have 5 or 5-star reviews, 5.0, not 4.9, 5.0.
I love
We're
the
really
detail,
proud
man.
of that.
Yeah.
We're really proud of that. Yeah.
I always wondered how you go from 5 to 4.9.
Yeah. At one point it happens, but so far we're still at 5 stars.
That's great. Hey, Chris, what's the talk to us about customer acquisition? Like, how do you guys get to your customers?
Yeah, so customers are generally single-family homeowners. We do multifamily homes now, and we also discuss with bigger asset owners to also insulate their portfolios. But the general 95% or 80%, let's right now say rather 80% of our customers are single-family homeowners. So how do we get to them? Basically 3 different levers. First, general paid marketing. Everything there is Meta, Facebook, and so on. Then secondly, through our hyperlocal marketing strategies. We try to be very, very locally on the ground, doing some entertainment, not entertainment, how do you say that? Not entertainment. Doing some events, that's what I said.
Okay.
Informative events.
I was going to ask you to say it in German.
No. Events, that's what I said. Like, for example, at a local municipality, they have an info session about retrofits. And then someone of us would go there and say, hey, you should insulate your house. That's what I mean.
How
Stuff
do
like
you
that.
filter down folks who don't have cavities? Because
wait, hold on. Can you go to the third one before you answer that?
Fair enough. And the third one is partnerships. So we saw that it makes a lot of sense for us to, and also substantially potential for growth for us to build more and more partnerships where we serve people or the customers of B2B customers, of B2B, of other friends and colleagues and partners which we have. For example, an energy consultancy, right? Super straightforward. Energy consultancy, what do? They go to a single-family homeowner. The single-family homeowner has no idea what they should do with their house. They say, please, energy consultant, tell me what to do. And then the energy consultant writes a list of what you should do with your house. And then there's insulation. Something like insulate your facade, insulate your roof, insulate your cellar, then change your windows. And then at the end of the day, there's a heat pump and a solar system. And obviously, collaborating with these energy consultants makes a lot of sense for us because when they already know the customer, they know the house, we can have a win-to-win partnership. We can deliver.
Do you give like a revenue share with them or something?
So some we do. That vastly depends on what kind of phase they are, what kind of corporation. Very often, and that's the very cool part, is that these energy consultants, they just want someone who does a proper job.
Yeah.
So they often are lone wolves also as well. They're people being independent workers, self-employed, and they just want for their customers someone who does a really, really good job. And then they just say, hey, why don't you go to VARM? I've worked with them beforehand. They do a good job. So that's you're in good hands. So that is one part of it. And then others, obviously, we have a revenue share model. So it's this and that.
How about like referrals between customers?
That is what we generally count in towards the hyperlocal marketing strategies.
Okay.
It's also referrals, and referrals are becoming more and more important. It's actually crazy, right? If you look at the general craftsman landscape, most jobs do 60-70% via referrals of their business. It's crazy. So yes, it's really important to us, and therefore, one of the reasons why we said, hey, we want to have an A+ insulation experience all the time. We always want to go the extra mile. These 5 or 5 stars are important to us because in the long run, this will pay off. These will lead to more and more referrals, and we already see that happening. But generally speaking, it takes some time. If you speak to other craftsman companies, they say, you need 5 years until referrals kick in. But I would say 10 to 20% already comes via referrals now, which is, I think, substantial. And it's just going to continue to become more and more.
That's interesting. And Last question would be on this would be like, what about content marketing? I assume if you're targeting consumers, it's
Yeah, no,
quite
that's part of the first bucket, which is paid. Yeah,
paid. Yeah.
still a major chunk of that is paid. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what was really important is that we never had the philosophy of like just we are VC funded business, we have to show growth. Let's just throw money at customers to just create more revenue. Sebastian and myself, we never were these kind of founders. We always said, hey, if we do something, it has to make sense. So we taking the money, and yes, we're trying to create more revenue with that, but it has to have a positive return on investment. Otherwise, we don't do it. And this also works with content marketing and everything else. Yeah. So it's we just spend money if it makes sense, also for paid marketing.
Yeah. Chris, did you just sorry, just one last question on this one. I promise the last one.
All good.
How did you get to these these as like your three kind of main facets for your go to market? Was there a lot of testing?
I think it built up over time, yeah, because when we started the company, yeah. So quick deep dive to something else. Yeah, one of our values is no bullshit.
Okay, go for it.
So I'm no bullshitting it. Yeah, we didn't have any idea about insulation. We had a slide deck, we had a presentation, we did a lot of research. Yeah, and we said, hey, it just makes sense to do insulation. Then we fundraised. We convinced investors to build a really big insulation business together with us, which is awesome.
Did you have on the first page?
Figure it out. We have to figure it out now, and then we figure it out. Yeah, and obviously paid marketing is always the easiest way to start, but it's also the worst scaling factor of these dimensions. Yeah, because if you spend more and more on marketing, leads becoming more expensive. At one point, it's not profitable anymore or has no positive contribution, then it doesn't make sense. So we tried very, very early on also to push for other partnerships, and for hyperlocal marketing strategies, which seem untypical. Yeah, trying to get people to do an installation project and convince them by post is I think something I would not have imagined 3-4 years ago that I'll do that, but it works actually quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes these traditional methods actually go full loop, right? Because everyone's bombarded in a digital environment that actually offline starts to become more effective.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and also in this like a small business environment, that's how things work. Like you said, most of it is word of mouth, really, and you just need to do a good job. You don't have to be brilliant. You just have to do a proper job, because most of in my experience, most of people really fail on the basics, and you just need to provide a normal service and everything is done properly.
And by the way, whenever I get the local business directory that comes through our letterbox, it's like a very, very local one, like district within a district. It's super exciting. I love flicking through that every month. I mean, like, who are the new local businesses? Like, what's going on around here? So,
that's cool. Yeah. And that's why we also like this general approach of making this cloud installer network, right? Which is at the end of the day a franchise on steroids. It is to generate local insulation shops. We believe sincerely that if you want to win this market, you need a local approach in the crafts and business. And the way to get there, in our opinion, is build independent shops in local areas and let them be in the specific area and help them grow. And that is generally speaking the idea.
Is this cloud installer idea taken from any other industry? I know you mentioned Uber, but is similar model applied to construction that you maybe took some inspiration from and somewhere else?
Yeah, generally speaking, from cloud manufacturing, actually. What is cloud manufacturing? It is a super simple term of saying you have a factory, with a lot of machines, and then you plug everything into the cloud, every little machine, every little path you have, and you suddenly get a lot of transparency over that individual manufacturing hall or whatever. And that allows you to become a really good orchestrator. It creates data, it creates transparency, you become more efficient down the road, and that is super cool. Yeah. So this cloud manufacturing term basically is basically bringing a factory towards the cloud. And what we said is we should do something similar with insulation. We built our own factory of local insulation shops, and we as VARM, as the central piece of it, are basically the orchestrator of that and make it super, super efficient. So that's why we coined that term. And I think this term can be whatever it is. Yeah, call it cloud installers or name it any other way. What we want to differentiate is that we say we don't do a classical franchise business. Because of a classical franchise business, you just buy into the brand, right? You have to do everything yourself. Versus with us, you basically are part of the brand, and we give you this business in the box solution where we run your business and you can focus continuously on insulation. And that's the major differentiator between a classical franchise business, or first a craftsman business, a franchise business, and then what we do and what we call building a cloud installer network, building infrastructure for cloud installation.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that when during the pitching or when you were trying to raise money, you didn't know much about insulation, and the idea was kind of emerged like of you working with investors. What do you think made your investors or partners believe that you actually can pull things together and do something meaningful?
So maybe I also under-exaggerated a bit. Yeah, I think we knew a lot about insulation. I think we've done our homework. We've done internships. We looked at how does it generally work, but we've never done it ourselves, right? When we started a company, we then did the certifications. We insulated the first houses ourselves and then hired people. But I think the key question is, how did we get to convince investors? And I think for the business we have, you need investors which have a special kind of mindset, and that mindset is that you can use VC money to build industry-leading category leaders of an industry, and not every VC loves that, yeah, because it's for various industries, also for insulation, it's an operational heavy business, and we at the beginning found investors out of the construction tech, prop tech space, which knew that insulation is going to be a huge topic for the next centuries. And they knew there's going to be a European leader. And we just said, hey, we are the guys to do that for you. Yeah. And also my co-founder, right? He has built a Series B company with 70 employees, sold it beforehand. And he has in this industry, generally what he did, he has this perception of being a very, very great operator. And I think the combination of him and then me having this idea and then plugging it together and saying, hey, we believe that we can be the guys who built this industry-changing company held true, and people wanted to invest into us, and then that was step one, basically. Yeah.
Okay. How do you so you mentioned that you're currently at seed stage. So where is most of this money now being allocated?
So generally, yes, to grow, to build up more teams, to learn more, and also to build out the franchisee cloud installer model. And for this, most of the money is going to people working in our headquarters and continuing to grow. Yeah, doing, for example, expansion, driving ops, building an academy, building out the cloud installer network. Yeah, and for this, we use most of the money. As also said, it's also way easier to do that if you have equity, especially when you want to grow in installation teams. We discussed earlier, yes, each installation team needs around 40,000 euros of investment. That is, if you look at a broader scale of things, it's actually not a lot. But if you run your own business, or if you want to open up your own business, just 40,000 euros for one new installation team is actually a lot. Yeah. And it helps to have money in the background to finance these investments with good return on invest, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Chris, how do you view competition? Are there any similar companies that are maybe VC founded and are in your space?
Yeah, also it feels
yes.
like nearly weekly, not specifically directly competing with you guys in blown in insulation, but certainly within the retrofit space, there's like another company that pops up. Definitely within the news feeds I read.
No, I think it's part of it, and I think that bottom line to this is we are in a great market and a great space. And I think we were an early mover, which I believe is a big advantage. Yeah. If you build up learnings, if you build up a solid foundation for the next couple of years, and then potentially some people are coming in and doing it at a later stage and maybe also overtaking us. But I believe we have a better foundation, we're better set, we're ready to go, and already created a lot of learnings how to get there. Are there copycats? Yes, there are. Yeah. Sometimes they do 100% exactly the same thing, or something super similar, or only focus on lead generation, or do a different form of insulation to start with, or focus on heat pumps. Yeah, which I still think is a different market. Yeah, I think insulation and heat pumps are quite different actually, but it all goes to the same retrofitting space.
Yeah, I think they are completely different. Like while insulating, you are investing in the envelope of the building, whereas adding heat pump is just a device.
Yeah. I think it's somehow similar that you can say you need the same concept of company. If you can build there's similar businesses in the heat pump space who are VC funded, are somehow in a similar stage, where they said as well, hey, we try to build this business with like bringing people onto the payroll, then training them, and then making them franchisees down the road. Yeah, just for heat pumps or for solar or for insulation. Yeah. So the ideas are somewhat similar. In execution, it's still very, very different.
My intuition would tell me that like a success of this will be also quite heavily determined by the profit share between installers and VARM, as that will determine the quality of people and the number of people are willing to participate in the cloud installer model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super fair point. And I believe what you have to make this work down the road, right? You have to make a win-win situation. A win situation for us and a win situation for the cloud installer. So what is the opportunity cost of a cloud installer? It's basically working for us on our payroll with a lot of safety. Huh? And now he can go out, take more responsibility for a construction site, having his own company. But obviously he needs a upside potential and he needs a better salary from the start. And we just have to find a way to make this work. Yeah, what we want to do, why do we do the cloud installer model? Because we want to give more and more responsibility to these people running their own business, so we have less overhead in the long run, while we are super fine if they make more money than being on the payroll. And then you just have to look at unit economics. Your unit economics have to be good enough to sustain that. And I can tell you right now, they are.
Very good.
Yeah.
Have you looked at other markets? For example, UK. UK probably has slightly less of these homes which would be suitable for like cavity blown-in insulation, but still not.
The UK actually has way more.
Actually,
Way more.
also to say
Yeah.
on the UK point, I saw a news article on BBC that people with blown-in insulation were unable to maybe get mortgage. There was some issue with mortgages. I don't know if you see something similar, Chris.
With what?
There was
Yeah, I
issues
think-
with mortgages, perhaps remortgaging a house that had blown-in insulation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've someone sent this to me quite a while ago, and maybe you have to look up the details again. But if I remember correctly, this was about a house which got blown insulation 20 or 30 years ago, and it had the wrong material in it,
Yeah.
and the wrong material led to it having more potential for molds. And
Yes.
then I think that was the issue. It was not blowing insulation per se. It was more that they did a bad
Material.
just that bad material, that it just did something wrong.
Yeah,
I have the article here. It says, the article, the clickbait article is insulation scandal. I have to scrape mold off the walls.
I mean,
every 2 weeks, Zoe Godric scrapes the black mold off the walls of her children's bedrooms.
Yeah, I think that's the article I read as well. And that is so sad, right? Because first off, someone fucked up that construction site, which is not cool. And second off, what people have to understand, and what is still a very, very big misconception or a stereotype, is that insulation leads to mold, which is actually not true. Insulation leads to less mold.
Wet insulation does.
Wet insulation, exactly. Wet insulation, which is based on bad material, leads to mold and everything. But I think that's quite obvious. If you do something completely wrong at your house or with everything, then it just breaks.
Yeah. So about the expansion. You guys are currently serving the German market. Are you in other European markets or plan to be?
No, and yes. So we want to build a European insulation champion, 100% correct. But at least for this year, we're not going to expand beyond the borders of Germany. We want to first off get distribution sorted out in Germany to have a very, very solid foundation and then go from there. And for us, what is really, really important is to go forward and prove that we can do this cloud installer model. So this is more focused than just land expansion. I think it also boils down to the question, are you in Series A, B, or seed? And I still feel like that we're very, very much in the seed stage. We have a lot of financial backing, which is awesome, but we still have to prove a lot of things. And this is the phase and point of time where we should do that. It's not just about deploying money and growing and growing and growing. We could do that. Yeah, we could outperform the whole market if we wanted to. But does that lead to a long-term sustainable VC-funded business? I'm not so sure. Yeah, for this, we have to make this transition happening. And for this, we have to prove that it makes sense to become a cloud installer and then drive together this business forward with us. And I think this is way more exciting than just say, hey, let's conquer France or Belgium or whatever. Yeah.
Chris, so what are your checkpoints that will allow you to state that, okay, we are successful and our cloud installer model works and we go further?
First off, if the 50-50 split works, so 50 win-win situation, that's what I mean. So win-win situation works. So if we generate really something that where the cloud installer has a benefit, and we have less operational burden, way less operational burden on construction sites because the people become more reliable, they feel more accountable for their construction sites, I think then we created a real win. And in the really, really best case scenario, something we didn't touch base on yet, which makes us exciting, is that if you build these local businesses, very, very local businesses, what could happen, we didn't test it out yet, but is that these cloud installers suddenly generate their own demand as well. Not because they must, but because they can, because they're intrinsically motivated to do so. And that would create also what we love to call a flywheel. Yeah, so something that basically penetrates itself again and leads to new growth. And I think this is something that makes me really exciting and something I want to test. And if this happens, if this is the outcome, then really good to go.
Okay, so we focus the last 10 minutes or so on some like your entrepreneurial journey so far. And I will kick off, Chris, with a question about, so going from your previous company that you sold whilst you were employed was, let's just say, bootstrapped, right?
Yes.
So what were some of the culture shocks or perhaps misconceptions that surprised you when you were suddenly now found yourself working in a business that was heavily backed by investors? Be honest.
Actually, right? No, I'm 100% honest. Yeah, you don't have to be worried about me being honest. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's actually what the story I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we raised seed, people always said to us, be more ambitious, or especially to me, be more ambitious, and create a bigger story. And I think intrinsically how I tend to be as a person, I'm being very, very honest. I would also say I'm somehow analytical. So I have a plan and I know I can outperform the plan and I'm good to go. Yeah. But how the VC world turns to be is that they want more than like just general ambition. They want a bit, I would say, craziness. And I think that is something I didn't expect it to be such a factor. I think investors are more rational people, but and I don't want to take away it from anyone. But what I just noticed, what works really, really good in fundraising, if you manage to create FOMO. If people are really having the fear of missing out on an investment, and it's like in dating, it's like in everything, but for whatever reason, I just didn't think it's the same in VC. I think they're more rational decision makers, but VCs and markets and investments are very, very often done based on FOMO. Yeah, and that is something I didn't expect when I started my journey. And I think really, really good fundraisers are good at that. Yeah. Making investors believe that this is right now the only chance to invest, and then they go. And drive evaluation and so on upwards.
Interesting. Yeah,
That's
I need
very
the money
interesting.
tomorrow.
Can you? So you said, like, and you sound very much like super reasonable and super honest, Owen, as well. But what's the? You said it's like a bit crazy, and like you learned something that that VC world is like you need to be a little bit irrational, I think, like, or like projecting too much, perhaps. Can you say a bit about that, because that's like super interesting, actually?
Yeah, I think you
So
just
sorry,
have to be
maybe my
really
question.
ambitious.
Let me reiterate my question. Is it that, like, when you were pitching to investors, they were telling you, okay, this business is fine, but you need to be more hungry. You need to like have bigger goals, this kind of stuff, or that's like different craziness?
Yeah, we're looking
No,
for
I think that's
100 million. We're looking for 100 x return, brother.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's basically it. Is that you write a business plan and it's never ambitious enough. Yeah, you just add 1 0 at the end of your revenue and then you're good. Yeah, it's a bit like that. And honestly speaking, it's a bit a game you play. And I feel very, very comfortable with the plan we have, and I feel that we can outperform it, and I think that's cool. And on the long run, I believe that every investor, if they're very, very honest, also prefers someone giving them no bullshit.
Of course.
But just a straight line of how to get there, how things are. And I think this is how Sebastian and myself, we tend to be as founders. But having that said, I think it's somehow hindering your in fundraising to maybe you should just be a bit more ambitious. Yeah. Or maybe you should just exaggerate a bit the things you can achieve in a certain period of time.
Yeah. Why? Because you are able to do so, or to achieve them, or it's better for marketing?
No, I think it's a bit like writing down scenarios, right? And I think that is a very good example of how to do. You can write a conservative scenario, a normal scenario, then a progressive scenario, and then the moonshot. And everyone knows that the moonshot is the moonshot, right? It's the 1% or the 2% or the 3%, and it's generally not what very likely is going to happen. But with investors, you should always talk about the moonshot. You should not talk about the progressive case or the normal case. You should talk about the moonshot. And to me, that is what I mean, like, with trying to be ambitious. I can talk about the moonshot. I can also show you a path, like, which is no bullshit, to get towards the moonshots. But I also know for myself, and if you as an investor ask me, how likely do you think that is? I'm going to say, it's the moonshot. It's not the most likely scenario of how this is going to work out, but I can tell you a path of how to get there. Yeah, so I think, Elon Musk said something about in his investors briefing the other day, where he basically said, I can show you a path of how that Tesla is worth more than the next 5 or next 10 biggest tech companies. And generally speaking, no one can say anything about that, because he said there's a path. I see a path.
Yeah.
He doesn't say this is the way it's going to go. Yeah, in 5 years, blame me for it. He just said, I can see a path. And I think this is what you have to do also very, very oftenly when you speak to investors. And personally speaking, I rather speak about the progressive, realistic case and tell them, hey, this is what, if you invest into us, I'm very certain that we can achieve that. Yeah. Versus just talking about a moonshot.
Interesting. I'll throw a slightly different flavored question, perhaps, about hiring. Was some maybe harsh lessons, or maybe there isn't any yet, but about hiring and building a great team?
Many, yeah. I think Sebastian my co-founder hired 200, 300 employees. Yeah, so he has quite a lot of experience.
Okay.
Still, though, we make also bad hiring decisions. And something I learned the hard way in the seed stage now is that we sometimes got blended too much by what people have done and less about the cultural fit. So we made 1 or 2 hiring decisions where, in hindsight, if we would have said, hey, is this really a person that can thrive in our environment and be set up for success, culturally speaking, then we would have not made that hire. But because we thought, hey, this person is awesome, it has exactly the skills that we need, maybe also the attitude, they can deliver, but in these scenarios, it didn't end up working out.
Chris, last question from me. What's your advice to founders innovating in the physical substance space?
Don't be afraid of investors telling you always that you need software. You just need good unit economics, good cash flow. Good cash flow is worth a lot. I think profitability, and especially a path to profitability down the road, is way, way more important than just your next ARR metrics. Yeah, because you can get ARR with very, very shit contribution. But if you have a business that can go profitable down the road, it's worth way, way more. Look at the S&P 500. How many software companies are they? How many are doing labor, physical intensive work? Then think again.
Interesting. Okay, Chris. Well, thank you for joining us. Is there like an initiative you guys have got going on at the minute, which you might want our audience to hear? If not, you can just tell us where we can find out more about you.
VARM.earth. Check us out. There's always open positions. And
Nice.
if you want to speak to us or know anyone who should definitely speak to us, then let us know.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Always.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.